Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Awesome. So this time around, we're tackling The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss.
Oh, excellent choice.
Right. I figured we've got chapters from the book itself, plus I dug up a YouTube interview with Rothfuss.
Great.
So we're going to piece it all together and see what we can learn about Kvothe and his pretty crazy life story, packed with magic and music and mysteries galore. Where should we start?
Well, The Wise Man's Fear really focuses on Kvothe as a character, his contradictions, the choices he makes.
Yeah. Okay, so like right off the bat, in the university, he's banned from the archives, which is kind of a big deal for him.
Right, it's his haven, basically.
Exactly. But at the same time, he's somehow become Illodan's student. So he's banned, but still learning. Seems kind of ironic.
For sure. I think it hints at how true learning can happen outside of those formal structures. And with Illidan, the magic he's teaching, naming, it's all about breaking the mold.
Naming, yeah, we're going to have to unpack that more. But amazing thing about all these contradictions with Kvothe. Like, he's this top duelist, but he's terrified of burning his hands.
Interesting.
Right. And he can call the name of the wind, this ridiculously powerful ability, but then he's totally awkward in social situations. And his love life, disaster.
I see what you're getting at. Rothfuss might be saying that talent doesn't equal success in every part of life. Kvothe's gifted, no doubt, but he's human. He's got vulnerabilities.
It makes him feel more real that way, right? You can relate to them more.
Absolutely.
But it also makes you think, what is power, really? Is it about balance, control, or something totally different?
Good question. I think that's exactly what Rothfuss wants us to ponder. Is true power about mastering the elements or mastering yourself? Maybe it's both. Maybe even the most gifted people have these weaknesses. Kvothe certainly does.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into this whole naming thing. Illodan's class, that's where it gets real. It's not like waving your wand and casting spells, right?
Nope. Illidan says naming is about understanding the secret meanings of words. Like there's this deeper essence, a true name that holds power.
That's so cool. It reminds me of how we all interpret things differently, based on our own experiences. So maybe naming is like finding the truth beneath the surface, that universal understanding.
You might be onto something there. Think about how Kvothe uses naming later on to escape Felurian and then to pass that crazy test in a Dimray.
Whoa, good point.
It's like naming gives him this edge and intuition to see past illusions and get to the heart of things.
He's tapping into something deeper, beyond just words.
Exactly. And that's what makes naming so fascinating. It blends language, magic, reality all together. It makes you think about the power of words, how they shape how we see the world.
Wow. Okay, so much to think about there. But while Kvothe's learning this powerful magic, he's also dealing with some serious personal stuff.
Oh, yeah.
His rivalry with Ambrose goes dark, breaks into Ambrose's room, sets a fire. I mean, even if Ambrose did attack him first using sympathy, Kvothe's response, it's intense.
Yeah, it definitely makes you question things.
Right. And that's probably what Rothfuss is doing on purpose, messing with our perceptions of Kvothe.
Yeah.
Hero or anti-hero. He's capable of great stuff, but also some pretty messed up stuff.
He blurs the lines, doesn't he? Good and bad. Much more complex than your typical fantasy protagonist.
Way more interesting that way.
Yeah.
Keeps you guessing.
Definitely. That moral ambiguity, it's what makes this book so compelling, makes you examine your own values, think about what's right and wrong. It's not always clear-cut.
No, for sure. And then there's Felurian, the Fae being who's supposedly death to men. Kvothe not only survives, he writes her a song and gets away, even though she wanted him to stay forever. What's your take on that?
It shows how resourceful Kvothe is. He's not just an arcanist. He's a musician, a strategist. He uses everything he's got. His wit, his charm, his understanding of language, which ties back to naming, to outsmart this ancient, powerful being.
And she makes him that cloak of shadow, the shade. What do you make of that? Is it a gift, a curse, or something else entirely?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The shade could be a symbol of Kvothe's growing power. Or maybe it's a warning, a sign of danger. We don't really know.
It's like it represents both sides of him, his potential and his vulnerability.
Yeah, that duality we keep seeing. And it's that kind of symbolism that makes this book so good to reread. You pick up on things you missed the first time, these hidden layers.
It's like Rothfuss wants us to figure it out, along with Kvothe. Speaking of journeys, what about Kvothe's decision to travel to a Dimray?
Oh, a Dimray.
Total culture shock.
Yeah.
He faces prejudice as an outsider. What do you think Rothfuss is doing with that part of the story?
I think he's pushing Kvothe and us as readers out of our comfort zones. Kvothe's forced to confront his biases, learn new ways of thinking, new ways of fighting.
And there he gets a new name, Myr,
Yeah,
a sign of his transformations.
absolutely. He's shedding his old identity, becoming someone new. It's about growth and adapting.
And this brings us back to something Rothfuss said in that interview about how what you have is the best possible book. No director's cuts needed.
Right. It's interesting. He's saying he's so careful, so deliberate with his writing. Every detail matters.
Yet he's thinking about an annotated version. Kind of a contradiction, don't you think?
Maybe not. I think he understands how complex his work is. He wants readers to have the chance to go deeper.
It's like he's saying, here's the story, but there's more if you're willing to look.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what makes this deep dive so fun.
For sure. We're following Kvothe's footsteps, trying to uncover those hidden meanings, grapple with those tough questions.
And that brings us to a point where his search for knowledge gets personal. That expulsion from the archives, it wasn't random. It was about the Emir.
Ah, yes, the Emir. Kvothe stumbles upon a theory that flips everything he thought he knew about them. He doesn't believe they just vanished. He thinks they've been working behind the scenes, influencing history.
Bold claim. But it makes you wonder, is there more to the story than we're being told?
It definitely raises questions, and it ties in with Kvothe's obsession with the Chandrian. He blames them for killing his parents.
Right. His search for knowledge isn't just academic. It's deeply personal. Driven by a need to understand his past and find out the truth about what happened to his family.
It adds another layer to his motivations, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And that drive leads him to some risky situations, like when he confronts Devi about those sympathy attacks, even though he's exhausted, vulnerable.
That scene shows how relentless he is. He'll push himself to the limit, even put himself in danger to get the information he needs. It speaks to his obsession, but also to his courage.
And he's not just using brute force, he's using his brains, too. Remember how he figures out Kvothe, the mayor's doctor? It's like he's a detective piecing together clues.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
He's sharp, analytical, he sees things others miss. And he's not afraid to speak up, even when it risks his position at court. He's got integrity.
It's what lets him save the mayor's life. He's not just a musician or a student, he's a problem solver, a hero in the making. But even with all those strengths, relationships, those are still a struggle for him, especially with Denna. Remember when he finds her singing that song about Lunray?
Oh, yeah. So much unspoken stuff there. Miscommunication.
Totally. They're drawn to each other, they share those passions for knowledge and music, but there's this wall between them. It's like Rothfuss is exploring how hard it can be to truly connect with someone, to say what you really feel.
You really feel for them, you know? They could have something special if they could just get past that.
It's like a reflection of Kvothe's overall struggles. Brilliant in some areas, clumsy in others, can't always turn his knowledge into successful relationships.
I think you're spot on. And that sets the stage for what's to come. Kvothe's journey isn't over, not by a long shot. And his emotional baggage, that longing for connection, it's going to keep influencing him.
And that's where we'll leave off for now. Wow, we've covered a lot in this first part of our dive, but there's so much more to explore.
Barely scratched the surface. The wise man's fear just keeps unfolding.
It does. So, until next time, think about what's resonated with you so far. Is it Kvothe's thirst for knowledge, his moral dilemmas, those relationship struggles, what parts of his journey mirror your own? We'll dive into even more of the book's mysteries in Part 2.